Hello there, and welcome to Photopia. It is a great pleasure and a great honor to get to share what I believe to be quite possibly one of the best interactive fiction or text adventure games ever created and written. This is from 1998. It was originally written for a competition, I believe, and as you can see by this awards list here, it has very clearly been consistently ranked as one of the best interactive fiction games of all time over the years. And the appeal to it is that it's very, very good for beginners, as in there's no harmful puzzles. There's nothing where it becomes impossible for you to beat the game if you miss something or forget to do something. If you're a new player, it holds your hand through the entire game, and you can just focus on the story. Obviously, it's not going to be for everyone, however. If you're looking for a puzzle solver or something a little bit more difficult or more thrilling in a way, I would say that this is not for you because it's very linear. The story is the story, and the actions that you take are sort of just flavor text along for the ride. However, that doesn't mean it's not worth experiencing. Obviously, it's ranked very, very high, and I'm not going to show any reviews because that sort of spoils it. I will say that there is sort of a twist in the middle of the game that may take you a little while to realize when it happens, but once you figure out what's actually going on with the game, it's very heavy on the heart, I would say. Anyway, like I said, it's not for everyone, but it's very, very good for beginners getting used to this because you can see if you just hit this play online button, you can play it right in your browser easily. And here, it'll ask if you want instructions, so I can just say yes. And this is basically a full walkthrough of how interactive fiction works. So even if you don't want to read it through right now, I would just recommend leaving a tab with this open and just open the game in a different tab so you can just refer to this whenever you need to. Yeah, so let's begin. Will you read me a story? Read you a story? What fun would that be? I've got a better idea. Let's tell a story together. Well, I will say this game sort of alternates between these generic white text screens and some very colorful screens with some black backgrounds. But to begin with, we are speeding down Montgomery Boulevard in a car. The streetlights are very bright. You have to squint hard as you can to keep your retinas from bursting into flame. That's a reference to Photopia, which is, I believe it's a noun, which means like that kind of light that you get when you're looking at something really, really bright, and then you sort of like shut your eyes and you have that remnant floating around of colors and things like that. That's sort of what it's talking about. Welcome back to the land of the living, Rob says. You planning to stick around for a while, or are you going to pass out again? Because one thing I've learned about chicks is that they actually don't like it when you pass out on them in the middle of getting it on. So if that's your plan, then I'm just going to drop you off and show up solo. Probably should have mentioned that there are some more adult themes in this, but like I'm pretty sure teenagers could handle it, so we're good. Um, you don't exactly remember where the day went, but as you listen to Rob rant on, bits of it start to float back to you. A day on the slopes, the brisk February wind against your face, polishing off a keg back at the lodge. Sounds like skiing to me. Those two girls you and Rob had hit it off with, the ones who'd given you their address in town. We should all get together sometime, they'd said. Of course, Rob insisted that sometime meant later tonight. You hadn't been so sure, but then you blacked out before you could argue the point. How Rob came to be driving your car, you're not exactly sure. Apparently, he couldn't wait till you were sober enough to drive it yourself. From the way he's weaving all around the road, he apparently also couldn't wait until he was sober enough to drive it either. Rob checks himself out in the rearview mirror. Man, I am one handsome dude, he says approvingly. All right, well, why don't we talk to him and see if we can get a little bit more information out of it. This game works with just pre-packaged dialogue options, so now I can just do 1, 2, or 3 to pick which one of these I want to say. So we'll start off with, I don't know, I want to hear more about the girls. Yeah, we should figure out how we're going to split up those chicks, Rob said. I got dibs on the one that was wearing the blue thing. Oh no, what if they change clothes? Rob looks at the scrap of paper with the address on it as you two go screaming through an empty intersection. Oh man, it's a fake address. They gave us a... No, wait, it's upside down. Oh hey, they're right on Bartlett Hill Road. Sweet. Okay, let's talk to him again. What's your blood alcohol level? Lower than yours, bud, Rob says. You look. Hey, it's red, you say? Huh? What? The light. You know, red, as in stop, but you don't stop. You don't even slow down as you fly into the intersection, and the light stays an unmistakable red. Red. You are Wendy McKay, first girl on the red planet. That means Mars. When you signed up for this mission, you thought you were going to be coming to a habitable colony. Habitable means you can live there. See, the orbiter was supposed to drop all these pieces of the colony, the power plant, the living quarters, the greenhouse, things like that, onto the planet's surface, packed in airbags which would bounce around and then open up once they were safely on the ground. Some of the airbags were supposed to hold big trucks, which could be operated by remote control, dragging the pieces of the colony into their proper places. Your job was going to be to take a tour of the place and verify that everything was up and running. Verify means to make sure. Instead, something went wrong with the orbiter, and it blew up before it had a chance to drop off its payload. Pieces of the orbiter and the colony rained all over the landscape, so this has just become a salvage mission. Your instruments indicate that there's at least one piece that's still functioning. Functioning means it's not broken. Your job is to find that piece, or pieces if there's more than one. So you climb down the ladder of your ship and step onto the surface of an alien world. We are at the landing site, the base of the ship. The onboard computer selected this general area as the most likely place to find salvageable remains of what would have been the colony. Salvageable means that you can save it. The battered, rust-red landscape stretches out before you in every direction, pitted and pockmarked and littered with boulders. A ladder leads up to the hatch of your ship. You can try to go up, but we will not be returning until we've completed our mission. So, we can wander around a little bit. Since we're on Mars, there's lighter gravity, and the text makes sure that we're aware of that. Near the huge tread. You're standing right next to what seems to be a piece of a bulldozer or some other construction equipment. There's a set of wheels, each one bigger across than you are tall, wrapped in a tread like an army tank. You can tell it landed with some force from the ring of debris that surrounds it in a perfect circle. Nothing here. As you walk, you first find one geodesic panel, then another. When people make a dome out of simple polygons like triangles or hexagons, it's called geodesic. Soon, the clear plastic panels are as plentiful as the red rust boulders. This must be where the dome for the living quarters landed. Soon, you find your right. Scattered around you are the remains of what would have been home to the first wave of colonists. Most of the housing units have been reduced to unidentifiable splintered heaps, but there's one that seems to be intact. Intact means that it isn't so damaged that it's unusable. The entrance is partially obstructed. Obstructed means blocked by debris, but you're small enough that you could probably squeeze through. That's part of what makes you the perfect person for the job, aside from your astronautical expertise. Astronautical doesn't really mean anything, I just made it up. Among the ruins of the power plant. The power plant is in substantially worse shape than the living quarters, and considering that those were completely wrecked, that is saying something. Though the fissionary materials were specially packaged to prevent them from exploding, the Geiger counter in your suit indicates this area is still very radioactive. I'll explain that part later, but let's just say it's dangerous and you should probably be moving along. Near the wrecked bulldozer. You're standing next to what appears to be most of a bulldozer, maybe the one that the tread you saw used to be attached to. Aside from that, this area is fairly desolate. The colonization plans called for a central dome where plants designed to thrive in the harsh, lifeless soil of the red planet would be grown and used for food. Everywhere you look are broken containers that once held seed pods and now contain nothing but cinders and ash. Among the shattered seed pods containers, you see one single undamaged one. Take seed pod. The moment you touch the seed pod container, the clicking in your helmet stops. This is the only item that you will be able to save. Now, we just have to go back to the ship. And we can go up through the hatch. Gently placing the seed pod on the seat next to you, you rocket back into space, leaving the red planet in your wake. Soon, a familiar cloud-streaked blue ball appears on your monitors. You are home again at last. But something goes terribly wrong. The heat shields hold up fine during re-entry, but the parachutes fail to open as you head for splashdown. and so you plummet at an incredible rate, the ocean growing closer and closer. You hear a splash. Where are we? In your home office. When you and Sam put down that down payment on this house 5 years ago, you were expecting that you were going to need all 4 bedrooms eventually, but after the complications with Allison, you found yourselves with a couple extras on your hands. This came in very handy when you started telecommuting. You can't say you're exactly glad that this room became an office instead of a bedroom for a brother or sister of Allie's, but you are glad that you and Sam decided not to move into that smaller house you are considering. Your computer screen is, as usual, cluttered with the details of the Peterson account. You can examine computer. It's been weeks, but you and your coworkers down at the office finally seem to have that Peterson account wrapped up. You wonder whether you might be able to nip down to the office for the party they're sure to have once the account is finally sent off. Alright, well, we should probably investigate what that splash was. You're standing in the hallway just outside of your office. Your guest Gabriel's room lies just ahead of you, the door wide open, and a flight of stairs leads down to the ground floor. As you reach the bottom of the stairs, you look through the sliding glass door leading to the backyard and feel a bayonet slice through your heart. Allie is floating face down in the pool. It takes all the willpower you possess to open the door as you dash outside instead of simply throwing yourself through the glass. In the backyard, your backyard isn't exactly sprawling, but it was more than big enough to accommodate the small swimming pool, which Allison was never supposed to be allowed near, at least not until she learned how to swim. Allie is floating face down in the pool. Gabriel pokes his head outside to see what's the matter. "Aye," he cries, rescue her from the pool. I will call the emergency." It's a little bit hard to know exactly how to type these instructions, so we're just going to go with this. You jump into the pool and in a matter of seconds have Allie safely on the cement bank. But she still isn't breathing. Gabriel comes dashing back outside, telephone in hand. The ambulances are coming, and at the same time I have the instructions for the CPR. First, you must tilt her head back. Tilt her head back. You tilt her head back. Good, Gabriel says. Now you must breathe into her mouth. Breathe into her mouth. Good. Now you must press her chest. You apply pressure to Allie's chest, and suddenly she coughs up a mouthful of water. A minute later, she is sitting up and looking around bewilderedly. "Allison," you cry. "Allison, how many times have we told you not to go near the pool? Another minute and we would have lost you. You know you're not supposed to go near." "I wanted to see," she says. "What?" "I wanted to see," she says, "if the world looked the same under the water as it does over it." Sea blue. Your spaceship was able to survive the impact with the ocean easily. You barely even felt the jolt. Impact is what it's called when things smack into each other. There wasn't even any damage unless you count the flotation devices bursting. But you should definitely count that, because without your floats, your ship sinks like a stone. Down, down, down into the murky depths. You're still not worried, since you could always just fly the ship right back up to the surface. Except that when you hit bottom, the engines go dead. You try to restart them with no success. Fortunately, your spacesuit is watertight and more than capable of protecting you from the water pressure that would otherwise crush you like a soda can. It will have to. You're going to have to swim for it. You gather up your seed pod, head to the airlock, turn on the lights in your suit, and hope for the best. Airlock. Well, this is a first. You're standing on the door to the airlock. Usually you're firmly rooted to the floor, and the door is just as firmly set into the wall, or else you're floating weightlessly, as there is no real up or down. But the ship landed at an odd angle, and you're not quite sure what to expect when you open the doors. If there isn't enough room for you to crawl out between the door and the ocean bottom, you're in some serious trouble. The wall, or now the floor, is festooned with a big blue button, which opens the door. Festoon means adorned. Oh, adorned means decorated. Press blue button. You've had a couple of experiences with explosive decompression, where you open up the airlock door and the rush of escaping air blows you out into space. This time, the rush of water flooding into the airlock smashes you up into the ceiling, or at least it's now the ceiling, it used to be the back wall. Luckily, your suit is able to cushion the blow. Soon, the airlock is full of water, and you are able to swim out the door, which closes behind you. In the Great Hall. At first, you're confused. You'd expected the ocean bottom to be centimeters from the open door, But instead, you drift down, down, ever down, and when your feet finally do touch something solid, it isn't the silt at the bottom of the sea, but a stone floor. You look up, hoping to see a glimmer of the surface. Instead, you find a stone ceiling, far too high above your head to reach, and right where you might expect to find a chandelier. You see blinking blue lights around the outside of your ship's airlock through the hole it made upon impact. You have crashed into an undersea castle. Moldy stone walls stand around you, dimly visible through the murk. You feel them more than see them. Chunks of fallen stone from the ceiling lie scattered about your feet. You can barely make out arched doorways leading north and south. Also at your feet is the seed pod. You lost track of it in the rush of the water. You scoop it up. Looks like we can go north or south. Let's go north first. In the keep. You're standing in the keep, a fortified tower inside the castle walls. Fortified means strengthened. A stone spiral staircase leads upward, but stops abruptly when it reaches the ceiling. Not much to do here, so we'll try going south instead, in the dining hall. This is a great empty chamber just like the one you landed in, except for a long stone slab that you decide must be a dining table. You don't have any evidence for this, you don't know how this castle got here, or who might have lived in it. For all you know, they might have been incredibly tall, skinny, water-breathing creatures, and this was one of their beds. But for the time being, we'll have to call it a dining table. Exits once again lead north and south, so we'll try south again. In the throne room. This room is just as big as the others you've seen, but unlike the others, this one contains a barnacle-encrusted object in the unmistakable shape of a chair. Given the place you found it, and the fact that it's built into the floor, you can only conclude that it must be a throne. The far wall features a carved-out alcove that looks like it might have been a fireplace, though how one might go about lighting a fire underwater is anyone's guess. Mounted on the wall above the fireplace in an X shape are a pickaxe and a shovel. An arched doorway leads east, but it's completely blocked by debris. You can also go back the way you came. Take pickaxe. The pickaxe clings firmly to the wall. You tug on it again, and this time the handle moves a few centimeters, and you feel a distinct click. The castle begins to rumble, with the shaking most pronounced in the direction of the keep. The shovel, which is wedged behind the pickaxe, clatters to the ground, and the rumbling stops. After that, the pickaxe swings back into place. Take shovel. Can we use the shovel on the debris to the east? Dig debris? Difficult to do underwater, especially through stone. Well, we heard the noise in the keep, so let's go all the way back up. A stone spiral staircase now leads upwards to the ocean surface. Let's go up. Approaching the surface. You start up the stairs, the murk gradually diminishing as you come closer and closer to the surface. But just as the sun starts to resolve from a general glow into a specific bright blob above you, a vicious rip current pulls you off the staircase and drags you further out to sea. The sheer power of the current throws you for a loop. You thrash in vain against it, crying out in frustration as your muscles begin to cramp from the effort, while you continue to be dragged further and further out to sea. Finally, you try swimming parallel to the shore, and that frees you from the current's grip. For several long moments, you drift aimlessly in the ocean, exhausted. When you do at last get your wind back and take your bearings, you find yourself kilometers from the nearest hint of land. Sighing, you start for shore. Your suit feels especially cumbersome, but you dare not take it off. Even if it does make you tire much faster, at least you don't risk drowning. Or rather, you don't risk drowning until your oxygen supply runs out. Luckily, this doesn't happen until your feet at long last touch the shore. You drag yourself onto the beach, blinding spots dancing before your eyes. Your knees give even as you tear off your helmet and everything goes dark. Everything is dark. No matter how much you strain your eyes, you can't see the faintest hint of light. But whispering voices trickle the edge of your hearing. Listen. Level of point 15. Distance called to, I don't know how to pronounce that. Frat boy is completely uninjured. Husband has an excellent. At least she didn't suffer. Vending machine ate my dollar. No longer in darkness. Light flickers before your eyes. At first you don't see anything familiar, and then suddenly Linda is there at your side. You are in a hospital bed. What? You start to ask. Shh, she says. You need to save your strength. The doctors say you'll be fine, but it'll take some time. How? The effort to speak becomes too much, and you have to rest for a moment. How? For a moment, Linda seems confused. Then she realizes what you're asking and shakes her head sadly. And suddenly the room seems colder. Gold. The sand is curiously cold against your face as you wake up, the waves licking at the soles of your boots. Cold and hard, more like gravel or even cobblestone than sand. As you lift your head and look around, you notice something else wrong. The sand is the wrong color. It's darker, more metallic. It's gold. On the golden beach. You are at the south end of the beach, a glittering crescent nestled between the crashing ocean to the east and towering cliffs to the west, ankle deep in gold. You run your hands through it, rings, coins, nuggets, and gold dust. Drifting down from the sky, collecting in dunes, the dust is everywhere. You run your hands through your hair, and your gloves come out looking like they belong to a statuette. To your relief, your seed pod has washed up onto the beach in excellent condition, though the container it was in is nowhere to be found. And though you thought you had lost it a long way from shore, your shovel is here too. Let's pick those up, take shovel and seed pod. Your head swims for a moment. You still haven't fully recovered from your struggle against the ocean. Try again. Got it. So, we are at the south end of the beach, so we can try moving north. You are right in the middle of the golden beach, which stretches off to the north and south. Something wooden is buried in the sand at your feet, but it's buried so deeply that only a corner of it is visible. Dig sand? We have our shovel, after all. You dig for a few minutes, and seem to be making good progress when suddenly the handle of the shovel suddenly snaps off. Apparently all that time underwater weakened it, after all. Luckily, you no longer need it. You've done enough digging that you're able to grab the wooden object and pull it loose. It's a treasure chest, a tiny one, and what's more, it doesn't seem to be locked. Let's open it. Opening the container reveals dirt. Someone must have found this very precious, which makes sense. It was buried in a place where gold was everywhere, and so it wasn't especially valuable. Dirt, on the other hand, seems to be quite rare. Since it's so scarce, it's worth keeping safe. Let's take the chest with us then and continue north. You are at the north end of the Golden Beach, which stretches off to the south. Though the cliffs to the north butt right up against the ocean, there is a path to the northwest with something shiny visible through the gap in the cliffs. A platinum seashell rests near the water's edge. As you reach out to take the shell, a crab emerges from inside it and skitters off into the sea, dragging the shell along with it. Oops, oh well. Well, let's go through that pass in the cliffs and take one last look at the Golden Beach before we stride off. You take one last look at the hockey game on TV and stride through the garage door to tell Allie it's time to come in. This was supposed to be a two-car garage, but with the trash cans, your workbench, Allie's bike, and all the rest of that junk that's taken up residence in this place, you're lucky to be able to even squeeze just the Volvo in here. Let's head out. In the front yard. One of the advantages of living on the outskirts of town is that you are able to get a house with a little bit of land around it. Which isn't to say you have to walk a kilometer to get to your neighbor's house, just that you can actually take a few steps outside your door and not be on anyone else's property. Allie is sprawled on the front lawn, gazing up at the stars. Hi, Daddy, she says. Hey, how come the night sky is dark? I mean, with all the stars in the universe, if you look in any direction, wouldn't you eventually see a star? Talk to her. I'm about to tell her about the inverse square law. Mary thinks it's a little strange that you started choosing introductory astrophysics texts as your bedtime reading material, but it really pays off at moments like this. Well, you say, lying down in the grass next to Allie, it has to do with the inverse square law. Think of a star and imagine putting up an enormous sheet of paper about one astronomical unit away. The star will light up a certain area on the sheet of paper. Now take that paper and put it 2 astronomical units away. The area that the star lights up will be twice as tall and twice as big, but it's the same amount of light hitting it, the same number of photons, only spread out onto an area 4 times as big. That means if you look at the small area on the sheet of paper, about only 1/4 of as many photons are hitting it, so it looks 1/4 as bright. If you look at it from 10 times far away, it looks 1/100th as bright. That means the further away you get, the fewer photons have a chance of reaching your eyes. Now, you may think that you'd have the number of stars in your visual field increasing just as fast as their intensity decreases. But the universe is finite. You could write the number of stars in the universe on a single piece of notebook paper, and the observable universe is even more finite. The universe is expanding so fast that even though the photons from a lot of stars have been released, they don't have the chance to reach us yet, and maybe never will. So eventually you run out. And if you factor in all the things that can block the photons that do have a chance to get here, like clouds of hydrogen gas, for instance, only the photons from the closest and brightest stars make it to our eyes, and the rest of the sky looks dark. Cool. Is that true about everything a star sends out, or just light? What about solar radiation? Well, you say, a star doesn't emit a whole lot except light, if by light you mean photons, which can range anywhere from radio waves to X rays and beyond. Then there's solar wind, which is mostly protons, and then there are neutrinos, which go through pretty much everything. People have collected huge pools of gallium, put them deep underground, and it turns out that 30 tons of the stuff, 30 tons, will catch one neutrino a day. The neutrino will turn one atom of gallium into germanium. All the other billions and billions of neutrinos just go steaming right through the Earth. But you can't see them because they go right through your eyes. Awesome. Where does gallium come from? Good question, you say. The easy answer is that it's mined, but here's the more interesting answer. You know what a star is, right? Sure, it's a big ball of hydrogen being fused into helium. Bing, right as usual. Now, eventually, the hydrogen runs out. What happens to the helium left over? Some of it gets expelled out into space, and the rest of it contracts even tighter till the helium starts to fuse. So the star lights up again, turning helium into carbon and then into oxygen, and the process keeps going, and some of the matter is expelled into space, but the rest keeps contracting, fusing into neon, magnesium, silicon, and eventually into iron. Iron is pretty much the most stable thing there is, but right now the hydrogen is the most common substance there is. But if you wait long enough, it'll be iron. Now, iron is element 26, and gallium is 31, so you'll never get to gallium that way. Heavy elements like gallium or gold are produced in supernovae. They're formed when stars explode and fly out into space. Really? Gold? It just comes raining down out of space? Maybe indirectly, you say. See, the newly formed heavy elements fly out into space and collecting gravity wells start clumping together. Some even end up inside new second or third generation stars, while others get locked up in planets only to get dug up a few billion years later and used for neutrino detection or jewelry or coins. Of course, gold is used in coins because it's valuable, and it's valuable because it's rare, and it's rare because, to a certain extent, it's luck of the draw. If you look at the chart of the elements in the Earth's crust, it turns out that iridium and the elements around it are rarer than you might expect. Right after iridium is platinum, which is very precious, and after that is gold, which is just slightly more common and just slightly less precious. But if you look at meteorites, you'll find that they're not lacking in iridium the way the Earth is. Meteorites are loaded with this stuff, and they've got even more platinum, so it's easy to imagine that there are planets out there which just so happen to be a lot of gold and platinum in the area of space where the planet was formed, and so they're considered common. Well, something else, like zirconium maybe, is considered really valuable. I've heard of iridium before, Ali says. Isn't there a lot of it in the layer of the Earth's crust that comes from right when all the dinosaurs died out? I remember reading something like that. That's right, you say. That's usually counted as evidence that it was a meteorite impact that led to all them dying off. Not that the iridium killed them, but that the iridium is a sign that there was a big meteorite around that time, and it's easy to see how a big impact could lead to massive die-offs. But that's also an important thing to keep in mind when you think about this stuff. One bit of pure gold is exactly the same as any other bit of pure gold. The substance behaves the same way. So, from one point of view, any particular piece of gold isn't valuable at all, since you can always get another. You can even replace your iridium. But, notwithstanding, you can't get back any of the dinosaurs. You're not made of a whole lot that's particularly exotic. The only stuff heavier than iron, the only things you need in a supernova for, are trace elements. A little iodine to keep the goiter away, that kind of thing. You're made mainly of the most common star stuff, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. But you can't just trade yourself in for a sack of carbon and oxygen and hydrogen the way you can trade gold for gold. What makes you you is the way that star stuff is arranged, and that's totally unique, which makes you more valuable than all the gold from all the stars in the sky. And what am I, chopped liver? Mary asked, emerging from the garage. All the stars in the sky? Really, Sam? When you start trying to wax poetic, it's a pretty good sign that it's past your bedtime, let alone Allie's. Time to come in, kids. Okay, Mom, Allie says. She stands up and stretches. Night, Daddy. Good night, honey, you say. Sweet dreams. As you follow her inside, you pause and take a quick look at the sky yourself. It's certainly pretty, but it's been a long time since you were as enraptured by it as Allie seems to be. You can't help but feel a little sad about that. Sky blue. As you walk through the path, you encounter first one shard of glass on the ground, then another, but it isn't until you crest the final hill that you see what you've discovered. Before the crystal labyrinth. You are standing on a ridge above the entrance to a vast crystal labyrinth. You'd be tempted to call it a city, with its haphazard collection of iridescent towers and spires and arches. Iridescent means shimmering with rainbow colors. But from what you can see from your vantage point, there's barely enough space between the crystal walls to permit one person to pass between them. The labyrinth is ringed by steep mountains, so going around is impossible. Your only choices are to enter it to the west or to head back the way you came. Let's be fearless. You step into the crystal labyrinth and immediately get lost. You are in a dazzling crystal maze with passages leading out to the north, south, and west. You wander around the maze of glass until you find another intersection. This is a funny little reference to Zork 1, which I have a walkthrough for. I may or may not have mentioned that already. But if you ever want like a more puzzle-driven text adventure game, unlike this one, then I would highly recommend checking out Zork. Came out in the 80s, very, very difficult, I would say. But I have walkthroughs for you on my channel, so go check those out. You are in a dazzling crystal maze with passages leading out to the north, west, and east. Two of the nearby walls intersect to form the base of an immense spire. At this point, we're kind of just wandering around. There's nothing for us to find here. However, I did mention that this game is very, very forgiving to new players. So, if we if we wait long enough, we get little help messages like this. With an audible sputter, the cooling unit of your spacesuit finally gives out. Examine spacesuit. Your spacesuit, custom made to fit someone your size, is much less cumbersome and bulky than the spacesuits of the past. This one is actually quite stylish. It says Wendy McKay on the front, or W. McKay. Well, if we think about it, the cooling unit going out isn't a great thing, because that means that we're just going to get really hot wearing the spacesuit. So, take off spacesuit. You take off your spacesuit and drop it to the ground. Can we examine ourselves? It's not very helpful. We can keep wandering around. The cool breeze ruffles the feather of your wings. Do we have wings? Let's go up and fly. You stretch your wings and soar into the sky. Flying above the crystal labyrinth. You are hovering above the crystal labyrinth. From this perspective, it looks like a mind-bogglingly complex mandala. Mandala? Mandala? Oops. A mandala is a pattern that some people use in prayer. There's no way that you could have possibly navigated it on the ground. In fact, it almost gives you a headache. Much more relaxing is the cloudless, sparkling blue sky all around you. A bird flies by, disappearing through the gap in the mountains to the west. You fly through the pass, reveling in the rush of wind against your white feathered wings. She's an angel. She's an absolute angel. No, can't think like that. She's just a kid like any other kid. Completely approachable. Puts her pants on one leg at a time like anyone else. Nope. Bad mood. Should not have thought about her putting on pants. Concentrate. Focus power. I have the tiger. Wax on, wax off. Wait, that's not right. Come on, don't overthink this. Just go in and ask her. Hey, Allie, what's up? Want to go to the dance with me? Easy as that. What's the worst that could happen? Well, you could wet your pants. Funny how it always comes back to pants. Let's go to the Queensport Middle School gym. Usually rather damp and dingy, the gym is currently festooned with colorful balloons and streamers in preparation for the big dance Friday night. The first ones went up at lunch, so when you went in for your 5th period PE class, the coach looked around, shrieked, and declared that there was a change in plans and the class would be playing soccer for the rest of the week. You look around, and there far above your head is Allie, glowing like a star. Or maybe that's just from standing in front of the spotlight rigged to the ceiling. She's balanced on a tall lantern draping streamers from the rafters. Her colleagues on the Student Activities Committee, Joyce and Cheryl, are standing around a helium tank, filling balloons and letting them float up to the ceiling. Allie looks down at you as you come in. Hey, John, can you turn off that light for me? It's kind of burning hot. She points at the switch. Turn off light. Turn off light switch. You turn the light off. Thanks, Allie says. That about does it for the streamers. She climbs back down the ladder, digs around in her backpack, and pulls out an orange. Want one? Looks like we have to talk to her. Let's start with the orange. Allie digs around in her backpack. Oops, looks like that was the last one. I got an apple left, though. She tosses it to you. Talk to you again. Ask Allie about possible paramours. So, are you, seeing anyone or not? Your voice dies away. Not so as you notice, Allie says cheerfully. Tell Allie about our lack of animosity. So, we get along okay, huh? Remember in kindergarten when I traded you my juice box for your pudding snack? That was pretty cool, huh? Joyce and Cheryl snicker, but Allie seems not at all put off by the stupidity of what you've just said. Sure, she says. We only have one option left. You take a deep breath. It doesn't take, so you try it again. Well, you say, so I was just kind of wondering whether maybe if you weren't doing anything and weren't already going, whether you might want to go to the dance with me if you want. I mean, it's no big deal or anything. It's up to you. I just thought why not? Pretty smooth. But Allie shakes her head. Sorry, I'm babysitting that evening. Your heart plummets into your stomach with what you're sure is an audible splash. You're trying to decide whether to throw yourself in front of the nearest bus or if you should just go home and slash your wrist when you realize Allie isn't finished talking. So it'll have to be Saturday, she concludes. Saturday. Wait, so that's a yes, you ask? Sure, she says. It won't be a dance, but I'm sure we can find something to do. Can you come by around 7? Saturday, 7 o'clock, 75 hours, 43 minutes, 17 seconds from now. Suddenly, it seems like a lifetime. Driving down Bartlett Hill Road. As you pass Allie's school, you can't help notice the message board that outside that says Dance Friday, Gym 6 to 10 p.m. There's a dance tonight, you ask? You should have told us. We could have found another sitter. That's okay, Allie says drowsily. You and Miss McKay always ask before any boys did. Still, you say, next time you just call us and give us the old heave-ho, okay? I'm sure there must be a legion of boys out there who would cried themselves to sleep thanks to us. Allie smiles sleepily. You sound like my dad, she says. Let's go with Wendy's undying adoration. You know, Wendy's crazy about you, you say. We take her to buy clothes, she wants to dress like you. We take her to get her hair done, she wants it done like yours. And every time you come over, she spends the next couple of days throwing around words like conquistador and geosynchronous. Geosynchronous. When she gets an 800 on her verbal SAT, we'll know who to thank. When I was her age, I hated it when people talked down to me, Allie shrugs. So it'd be hypocritical of me to talk down to her. You cruise through the Polk Boulevard intersection. Ask Allie about how I sound like her dad. Hmm? No, it's just that when you're talking about legions of boys crying themselves to sleep, it reminded me of how my dad's always telling me that you're at the age now where you're going to have to deal with droves of grubby little boys vying for your affections. And I just wanted to warn you that I'm bound to show an inordinate amount of glee with every heart you break. So go get to it. She smiles. Inordinate glee. Well, when I asked him about that, he said, you see, it's just like Freud said. The parent of the powerless sex always longs to have a child of the powerful sex. And sure enough, after years of having to deal with being on the receiving end of possible rejection every time I was interested in someone, it's going to be a thrill to see my very own kid dishing it out. It's a clear-cut case of Venus envy. You go over the train tracks and through the O'Brien Boulevard intersection. I would ask her this, but I will just not say anything. She's a little sleepy. Time passes. You cruise through the Nelson Boulevard intersection. Wow, all the lights seem to be green this evening. You enter the Montgomery Boulevard intersection and are blindsided by a car screaming down the road with its lights off at 100 kilometers an hour, maybe more. The impact caves in the passenger side door and sends the car spinning wildly, the air thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burnt rubber. Allie's blood hot against your face, and as you black out, you catch a glimpse of the light, and it was green. It was green. On the other side of the pass, you find yourself flying over a vast forest that stretches as far as you can see. The mere sight of it is enough to make your wings ache. There's no way that you can fly that far under your own power. Besides, the idea of strolling through a shady forest seems awfully appealing right about now. You touch down and wander through the woods. In the forest, after a few minutes, you reach a small clearing and pause to take a look around. Something is wrong. In fact, everything is just slightly off. The leaves of the trees don't sway enough in the breeze. The subtle sounds of the forest are conspicuously absent. Everything smells sterile and dead, but you can't quite put your finger on why this is. We are carrying our seed pod and treasure chest, which is closed. Can we wander somewhere? You wander through the forest for a bit, but the rest of it is just like this clearing. There's something wrong, but you can't figure out what. As you look more closely at the trees, you suddenly realize what's wrong with them. They're not alive. The trunks and branches of the trees are solid stone, petrified wood, the organic material replaced with silica from the groundwater over the course of millions of years. Silica is silicon dioxide, which makes up sand, quartz, and all kinds of things. But these are not mere stone pillars. They're still trees, complete with leaves made of malachite? Malachite? I don't know. Apologies. A green marbled stone derived from copper and as arresting in its own way as emerald. Arresting means it makes you stop and look. You don't have enough time to ponder this mystery, however. Suddenly you hear a growling in the distance and turn to see a wolf charging right at you. The wolf looks rather emaciated. Emaciated means scrawny from lack of food. This in no way makes it any less terrifying. The wolf bounds closer, looks as though it's about to leap for your throat. Can we talk to the wolf? Unfortunately, you and wolf don't speak the same language. The wolf jumps at you, knocking you to the ground, and starts playfully licking your face. The danger past, you get up and gather your possessions, the wolf trotting merrily along your heels. Not much to do. The wolf looks rather emaciated. Someone needs to feed it, and it looks like you're elected. What can we feed it? What do we have? We have a seed pod and a treasure chest. We open the chest. It's some dirt. Can we plant pod in dirt? Can we plant pod in chests? There we go. You have to take the dirt out of the chest and then drop it on the ground, and then you can plant pod in the dirt. You plant the seed pod, step back, and wait for it to grow. Nothing happens. You hear a soft chuckling behind you. Well, well, says a voice. If it ain't pirate turned astronaut Windy McKay, what are you doing in the Queen's realms? You turn around to find a diminutive man with a bushy white beard pushing along a white cart almost as big as he is. Diminutive is another word for small. Who are you? You ask. I'm the local weather salesman, he says, and I'd say that you're not going to have much success growing things without some rain handy. He rummages through his cart. You're in luck, he says. I just happen to have some in stock. Ask salesman about rain, wolf, or or about the queen. I think the queen is the most intriguing thing of these three, so we'll go with that. No one's ever seen her, the weather salesman says. No one I know of, anyhow. Makes sense. Nothing lives for long in any land that falls into her realm. Looking at her probably turns people into stone. Okay, try again. What about the wolf? Can't be from around here, that's for sure, the weather salesman says. Nothing stays living for long any place that falls into the queen's domain. Trees turn to stone, birds fly away, even the dirt turns to metal. Poor thing probably wandered in, got lost, and half starved to death with nothing to eat. Alright, man, give us some rain. The salesman says. Normally I ask for a gold piece, but it looks as though you have enough in the stuff in your hair for me to change my price. He reaches into his cart and pulls out a comb. What say ye? You run your fingers through your hair, and they come out golden. Apparently they collected quite a bit of gold dust while you were wandering around the beach. Fair enough, you say. You sit down on the ground, and the weather salesman goes to work with his comb. A few moments later, he gleefully puts 2 handfuls of gold dust into his cart. Then you stand up and he snaps his fingers. A tiny cloud appears at knee level, raining a trickle of water onto the planted pod. You start to complain, but suddenly there's no one to complain to. The salesman is gone without a trace. And in the end, it doesn't even matter. The tiny rainstorm did its job. Shortly after the cloud dissipates, the pod shudders, and a full-grown shrubbery erupts from the inside, loaded with deep red berries and bright green leaves. The wolf starts nibbling at the berries, first tentatively and then with relish. And with the berries springing forth from the bush as fast as the wolf can eat them, it seems pretty clear that the wolf isn't going to starve to death after all. So, while it looks as though you won't have anything from the Red Planet to hand over to headquarters once you get home, you have saved a life. And that's the end of our story for tonight, Allie says. What? But that can't be the end. There's still so much you don't know. Like, how do you get home? Are you even on the right planet? Do you get in trouble for not having the pod anymore? Who's this queen the weather salesman talked about? But wait, you begin. What about... Come on, Wendy, Allie says. You know the rules. It's way past your bedtime. Your parents will be home soon, and if you're still up, it won't look too good for either of us. I'll be right here if you need anything. She pulls a book out of her backpack and starts in on her homework. Come on, Allie. We can ask for her a glass of water. Sure thing. She ducks out into the hall and moments later returns with a glass of water, which she hands to you. Make sure you sit up when you drink it. You gulp down the water. Refreshing. Refreshing. Ugh. What about her homework? Oh, it's just geometry. Alternate interior angles and stuff. Um, where do you get your ideas from? Allie puts down her pencil. That's not a question people are supposed to be able to answer, she says, but I can. All that stuff, every bit of it, came straight from these weird dreams I've been having, and they're not the only ones. There's another. Are you sure you want to hear about this? Yeah, you say? Okay, it starts like this. Purple. In a dark place. I open my eyes, and I am in a cold, dim, lonely place. I blink, thinking my eyes are still closed, but then I realize that this is not pitch black. There's a dark purple fog billowing all around me, so close to black as to make nearly no difference. There is a faint purple glow to the stone floor, too, though I might not even be able to notice it if it wasn't holding me up. Exit. I try to find my way out of this place, but no matter what direction I try or however far I go, it's all the same. Eventually, and maybe it's minutes, maybe it's days, I can suddenly make out a vague shape in the fog. What I want to point out is that this isn't me typing in commands anymore. This is Allie doing it herself and telling a story. Look at shape. It's strange because parts of it look distinctly human, but others just are clearly not. I come closer and I discover the answer. It's a person sitting in front of a huge throne made of rock. No, that's not right. It's not made of rock. It is a rock, one single stone in the rough shape of a high-backed chair. Look at person. Her face is turned away from me, but I can tell that it's a young woman dressed in long, flowing purple garments. Dressed in royal purple, sitting on a throne, I can only assume that she's a queen or princess of some sort. But since I don't believe in monarchy, and I'm certainly not one of her subjects, I don't feel the need to bow or scrape or call her Your Majesty. Hello? I say. After a moment, she turns to face me, and that's when I start to get really scared. She has my face. She's a lot older. She's got to be at least 20, but there can be no mistake. I'm talking to myself. Normally, this would be a sign of impending mental collapse, but luckily it's already a dream. Well, she says, aren't you going to flee in terror? Can't you feel the life seeping out of you just by being near me? Can't you? Talk to Queen. Allie chooses to ask why I should be scared. Why should you be scared? She asks. No, I suppose you wouldn't know. Not yet. You're new here. But I suppose I might as well confess. See, I'm one of those girls with a reputation. Everything I look at is supposed to die, and it's true. I am the queen of all I survey, and all I survey is long dead. But here's the part that no one believes. It was like that when I got here. I start to ask her another question, but then she starts talking again. When I arrived here, I was given proprietorship over all the realms I had dreamt of as a child, she says. But those were all places from which life had long since fled. Barren planets and crumbling castles, forests of stone and vacant crystal cities, worlds upon worlds that were mine, all mine, and not a bit of it populated by any living thing. Sure, the occasional fish or fowl might wander through, but any creature that enters my domain either dies or leaves me. Nothing ever stays. Allie chooses not to say anything. I decide not to say anything after all. The last thing she needs after what she just said is me asking the way to the nearest exit. No, the queen says, by all means go. You'll be back soon enough. She pauses. You see, I remember this conversation from the other direction. We're home, you announce. Wendy, what are you still doing up? Sorry, Miss McKay, says Allie the sitter. It's my fault. Our bedtime story sort of segued into a conversation about these dreams I've been having. I shouldn't have kept her up this late. Well, at least it's not a school night, you say. No harm done, I guess. Jim's waiting in the car, so you'll probably ought to get out there. As for you, Miss Wendy, you need to get to sleep pronto. Kiss, Wendy cries. Very well, you begin, but Wendy shakes her head. I mean Allie, she says. Humph, you say, as Allie flashes you an embarrassed smile and kisses Wendy on the cheek. Good night, kiddo, she says. Hope your dreams are sweeter than mine. Tell Allie thanks for babysitting. Sure. No problem, Allie says. I enjoy it. Allie finishes stuffing her books in her backpack and puts it on. Okay, see you soon, she says. You follow her out to the garage door. Jim's car is waiting in the driveway, and as she walks towards it, she is swallowed up in the glare of the headlights. Pure white light blazes down on Allie's crib as Sam plugs in the huge screen he ordered through the mail and mounts it on the ceiling. Allie rubs her eyes. What is that thing anyway, you ask? Just a fluorescent light? Not at all, Sam says. The Photopia is a low-energy, high-intensity LCD screen with a bunch of different settings. He tosses you the remote. Just push the white button to cycle through them. You push the white button and the Photopia suddenly goes dark. But not, you realize after a moment, completely dark. Instead, it displays a field of stars as if it were a skylight. Allie blinks and regards it curiously. There's more, Sam says. Hit the button again, and there's another mode that's even better. The screen changes once again. This time it shows a black field over which three large circles, one red, one blue, one green, slowly drift. They bounce off the sides of the screen, but when they collide, they blend to form other colors. Magenta, cyan, yellow, white. Allie claps with delight. I think we have a winner, Sam grins. Money well spent. Says I. Okay. I know one little kid who's up way past her bedtime. Can you get the lights on? Turn off lights. You glance into the crib as you reach the light switch. Good night, Allie, you say. Sleep well. You turn out the light. The end. Of course. But yes, this is the end of the game, and hopefully by now you've figured out what the overall story is. Um, Basically, I don't think I need to spell it out for you. If you don't know what it is, then I'll just give a few hints, and then you can rewatch or go play the game for yourself to really get a feel for it. But uh, basically, every single scene with a white background is taking place in the real world. Every single scene with a black background and colored text is Allie talking to Wendy as part of a bedtime story. And the events that happen in the real world take place way out of order. So we get to see uh, snippets of Allie's life from when she's a baby, when she's growing up as a little kid trying to swim in a swimming pool, when she's being asked out to the school dance by another classmate, when she's actually talking with Wendy outside of the stories and just babysitting her regularly. Um, it's very interesting, and it's all out of order, and we get to see and interact with her from very many different perspectives of different people in her lives, her mom, her dad, Wendy, the babysitters, parents, I mean, Wendy's parents, and the one person we never get to play as and have no control over is Allie herself. But those are my hints as to what the story is. The events happen out of order, but generally the white background things are events that take place in the real world, and the events with the black background are bedtime stories for Wendy, which is why throughout the entire game, every single time there's a colored scene about the astronaut exploring the planet, it's always riddled with like word definitions where she'll be like, "Oh, this word actually means this because it's a bedtime story for a child. The child needs to be told what new words are." So hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you can see the value in this. And despite the tragedy, I think it's a very, very good story. And obviously, it's not for anyone, but I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you still don't understand, I would highly recommend playing it for yourself. There's not really any difficult puzzle or place to get stuck, from what I can see. And the game will hold your hand and help you out a little bit. For example, if you forget to take the shovel, the game will just be nice and give you the shovel instead of just screwing you over and things like that. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Um, I really, really like this game. Uh, I would wager to call it one of my favorite text adventure games I've ever played, and one of the most impactful in that it stuck with me for a while. But yeah, not for everyone, but it's a very interesting story.